$20 billion vanished. FTX was supposed to be one of the safest names in crypto. Instead, it became one of the fastest financial collapses of the decade. Customers trusted it. Investors praised it. The media elevated its founder into a genius. Then the whole thing fell apart. This is the collapse of FTX. For a while, FTX looked untouchable. It had celebrity endorsements. It had major investors. It had naming rights, media attention, and political access. Its founder, Sam Bankman-Fried, was presented as the smart, responsible face of crypto. He did not look like a traditional Wall Street executive. That helped him. He looked informal. He sounded intellectual. He talked about ethics, regulation, and risk. And that image made people trust him. But in financial collapse stories, image can be the most dangerous asset of all. Because behind the branding, the most important question is always the same. Where is the money? An exchange has one core job: hold customer assets, process trades, and keep customer funds separate from speculation. That separation is everything. If customer money stays protected, panic can sometimes be contained. If it does not, the entire structure can implode. That is where the FTX story turns. FTX was deeply connected to Alameda Research, a trading firm also tied to Sam Bankman-Fried. That alone should have raised concern. Because when the same empire controls both the platform trusted by customers and the firm taking aggressive risk, the potential for conflict becomes enormous. One side is supposed to protect trust. The other side is built to chase returns. Those two roles should never blur. But the market began to suspect they had. The first real crack came when questions emerged about Alameda's balance sheet. Reports suggested a large share of its value was tied to FTT, a token linked closely to FTX itself. That was a massive red flag. Because if a company's strength depends on an asset connected to its own internal ecosystem, the numbers may look far stronger than reality. That is not durable strength. That is circular confidence. And circular confidence is deadly, because it works only as long as nobody tests it. Then the test arrived. Customers started pulling funds. The market began asking the question that destroys weak financial institutions. If everyone wants their money back, is the money actually there? That question has killed banks, hedge funds, exchanges, and empires. FTX could not survive it. Withdrawals surged. Confidence collapsed. The company scrambled for emergency financing. There was talk of rescue deals. There were public reassurances. There was visible panic. But once trust is broken at that level, words stop mattering. And the deeper outsiders looked, the worse the picture seemed. This no longer looked like a simple temporary liquidity issue. It looked like a structural failure, a governance failure, a control failure, and possibly much more. Because if customer assets had been used to support risky activity elsewhere in the empire, then the exchange was not functioning as customers believed it was. That is what made FTX so devastating. It was not a fringe operation. It was not an unknown founder. It was not a tiny, speculative side project. It was one of the most celebrated names in the industry. Elite investors backed it. Major institutions took it seriously. Its founder was treated like a visionary. Yet behind that status, basic financial discipline may have been missing. That is the shocking part. Not just that FTX collapsed, but that so many sophisticated people believed in it first. The reports that emerged after the collapse painted an ugly picture. Weak oversight, poor internal controls, unclear movement of funds, a lack of mature governance expected from any serious financial institution. It started to look less like a world-class exchange and more like a fast-growing power center that had outrun its own structure. And when growth outruns structure, collapse becomes only a matter of time. This is the deeper psychology of FTX. People did not just invest in a company, they invested in a narrative. A brilliant young founder, a new kind of finance, a smarter and more ethical future, a disruption story people wanted to believe. And once enough people believe the story, they stop demanding proof. They stop asking, who controls the cash? Who checks the books? Who approves the risk? What happens if customers rush for the exits? Those are boring questions during a boom. But they are the only questions that matter when the collapse begins. That is why FTX matters far beyond crypto. Because this story was not really about digital coins. It was about trust without controls, growth without governance, reputation without verification. The packaging looked modern. The weakness underneath was ancient. In the end, customers were trapped. Investors were crushed. The brand disintegrated. And one of the most celebrated firms in crypto became one of its greatest warnings. FTX looked like the future, but the future it actually revealed was much darker. It showed how quickly money, power, and prestige can gather around a system that has not earned real trust. And it showed how violently that illusion can break once pressure hits. That is the lesson. In finance, hype can rise fast. Reputation can rise fast. Valuation can rise fast. But if governance is weak, if risk is hidden, and if customer money is not truly protected, collapse can come even faster. FTX did not just fail. It exposed what happens when the story becomes stronger than the structure. And once that structure cracked, $20 billion disappeared into one of the biggest collapses of the decade. If you want the next case, look at Terra Luna. Because the collapse showed what happens when an entire financial system is built on confidence alone.